Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our session today, Designing Career Pathways People Actually Use. I have to say, I'm extremely excited for this session because it's not very often I get to do this with an actual customer of ours and to see the story from their side. So this is really exciting, and thank you so much, John. And just a short introduction to the community and Juno Journey as the host of this event. So my name is Klil Nevo. I'm the head of community at Juno Journey, and I started 2 years ago the Learning Table community, which is I used to be head of CS here for many years, working with a lot of our customers, with HR, L&D leaders, talent leaders. And one thing that was very clear for me was that it's a very lonely world out there. There's a lot of on your head and like a lot of concerns, but you're kind of dealing it with a small team or maybe sometimes alone. And that's why we kind of created this community to really create a stage for people to share, to learn from each other, to not go through this alone. So we have online sessions. It's a global community from the US to Europe to EMEA. It's really exciting. So online webinars and workshops, just like the one today. We have community hubs across the world. Next week, next month in London and Germany. So excited for that. Exclusive events for senior leaders and more personal professional matchmaking. So it's a 2,000 people community. I love to connect people with specific people that might support and help them. So if you have anything you need, I'm your girl. Next. And very, very shortly about Juno Journey, because it's really not about us, but still, why are we doing this? So I would like to show you how we're helping our customers move from learning to workforce readiness. And what does that mean? So I'm probably not going to be the first one to shock you with this knowledge that the world is changing faster than us personally, but especially our organizations can really execute. And the real question is, where are we right now in supporting our employees with what they really need in this unbelievable change? And if we're talking about what our employees are going through and what that change is, think about, the average skill tenure that reduced dramatically from years to almost nothing, which basically means we need to upskill and reskill all day long. I think that would be also relevant today. The number of business applications we're using, it just keeps on growing, and the changes they have, we want to make it efficient. So we want to see business value out of them. That means a lot of application training. And if you think about that, our own company delivers much faster, which means the knowledge of our people is changing continuously. In short, they need our help. But, oh, sorry. Where most L&D teams are still today is stuck in the operational phase rather than supporting their people in preparing their workforce readiness. Things like sending out reports, updating onboarding paths, making content more engaging. And that keeps changing, but that's exactly what we want to see. And that's not the strategic work that we know workforce readiness needs. And that's where we step in. So Juno supports hundreds of companies, Boulder included, with the workforce readiness efforts in the humane era. We basically connect human strategy with automated execution, are orchestrated by Juno. So Juno basically understands your company focus, your department goals, and your employees' capabilities, and she doesn't do the work by herself. But yeah. She does it with a team of agents. Each and every one of them focuses on specific aspect of your employee's workforce readiness, from onboarding to manager enablement, compliance, knowledge enablement, priority-driven upskilling, and career management. We do it through two main models, the Juno Training, which is an AI-powered LMS that automates backend admin, takes care of content creation, real-time knowledge grabbing, verifying training understanding, automating workflows, and you don't even need to go into the system. And the Juno Growth, which is a goal-driven LXP that turns performance goals into personalized development plans, creating career journeys, and automating learning budget management. And in the last minute of my time before I give the stage to John, I do want to show you very briefly how we do it. It's kind of cool. It's two really cool L&D agents and how they do it. So I'll do it really quickly. So this is Jaden. He's fully synced with all of your company tech stack, evolving knowledge and HRIS. And based on your company business goals and unique objectives, he builds within minutes any role-based onboarding, ongoing training, any content unit you need, making sure your new hires' time to productivity reduces and they possess the skills and knowledge they need to bring business results fast, and basically takes all that heavy lifting off your hands, automating updates of content, creating stunning trainings really within minutes. And everything is also synced to all of your like Claude, ChatGPT. So you don't even need to go into the system. You can work where you're used to, and it automatically works with your system. The second agent I want to show you is Gemma, which is probably super relevant for everyone who's here today. So based again on your company goals, tools, and employee data, Gemma offers personalized performance goals for each employee to support the business based on who they are. So she takes into consideration timeframes they have, how they like to learn, everything they need, what their skills are, and then builds a step-by-step actionable plan of tasks and content from hundreds of content providers without the need to prepay for subscriptions. She supports upskills and closing skill gaps. In addition, she also finds mentors within the organization people can partner with, making sure employees are set up for success at scale. So that was us in a nutshell. John, why do you look surprised? You know the system. And now let's talk about the man of the hour for me today, John. Before I introduce John, I do want to say that this is very much, if you've ever been with us, and I see a few people who were, then you know that this is not like John speaking, we're listening, and it's a boring webinar. This is a community. So it's a safe space for everyone to share, to ask, to also say what they think. You can argue with each other, with John. It's really a space for all of us to learn and teach each other. And John has a lot to learn as well. So although the format is a webinar, so you can't just jump in, but you can use the raise hand and I'll give you permission to talk at any moment. You can use the chat, the QA area, asking questions. If someone asks a question you want to add on, please do. It's an open conversation. And when you write in the chat, you can say like, hi, I'm from here. This is me. Just make sure you write to everyone. So John has spent nearly a decade at Boulder, building the kind of career frameworks that people actually use. His work spans people success, talent acquisition, and operations. And he's always with the same focus, turning career growth from a nice to have into a real scalable business outcome. He specializes in moving organizations away from static job ladders towards skill-based pathways that drive genuine internal mobility. And I'm really excited to learn from you today. Thank you so much for joining us, John. And I'm going to give the stage to you.
Oh, I appreciate, Cleo. So great satisfaction for me to be here with you. Appreciate Juno and all that you do already from the years that we've been partnering and working together. So great to be here with everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us for this conversation today on pathways, designing career pathways that people actually use. So indulge me for a moment. Imagine Jennifer. She is a brilliant software developer who started her career on a classic job ladder. For 5 years, all she focused on was the next rung. Junior developer to mid-level developer to senior developer. That ladder was linear, rigid, and focused only on vertical movement. The rule for her was super simple. Go up or stay put. Now, Jennifer had a secret passion. In her spare time, she was building incredible dashboards, turning raw data into compelling visual stories. She realized that she had a deep, transferable skill in data visualization and communication, a capability that the company needed in its product strategy team, but which wasn't part of her ladder. So when she asked about moving laterally, she was told that's not the path for a developer. So the framework was so focused on her role and the next title above it that it blinded everyone to her true capabilities. She eventually felt stuck. Then, one day, she moved to a company that used a career ecosystem model. On her first day, she wasn't shown a ladder, but a sprawling, interconnected subway map. This map showed her that her growth wasn't just a vertical line, it was multidirectional. It valued her data visualization skills, showing how she could move laterally to strategy, diagonally to tech ops, or continue vertically, all based on developing critical capabilities. Her growth was no longer about climbing to the next predefined title. It was about building a powerful, transferable skills portfolio and choosing her own route. That new model reflected reality, not just an old school organizational chart. So that's the shift that we are here to talk about today. Moving from the rigid, linear job ladder that fails to reflect how careers actually evolve to designing a dynamic, skills based ecosystem that people can truly use. So, in this conversation that we are going to have here today, I'm going to share with you how we built dynamic career ecosystems at Boulder that truly reflect the skills and careers and how skills and careers evolve today. It is what we'll cover. First, we are going to talk about the shift from job ladders to career ecosystems and how we moved away from this linear model to one focused on capabilities. Second, our definition of growth, ensuring that it's skill based and multidirectional. Third, we're going to see how we build career pathways that our people use now, making sure that they are visible and integrated into their daily work. Fourth, I'm going to share how we embedded career pathways into everyday work through curated learning journeys and manager led developmental conversations. And then finally, we are going to look at impact measurements to prove the value of these pathways, from engagement scores to business outcomes. Now, let's begin with our first topic then, from job ladders to career ecosystems. We start here because we need to understand the problem that we try to solve at Boulder. You know, for decades, organizations have relied on the traditional job ladder approach, right? So, as you know, these systems, they are linear, they are rigid, and frankly, they were built for a different time. So they operate on the assumption that vertical progression is the only path to growth. However, this rigid structure simply does not reflect how skills, roles, and careers actually evolve today. Our experience shows that the core failure in most traditional frameworks, including the ones that we used here 4 years ago, is that they over focus on fixed roles instead of the fluid, transferable capabilities that people have. So, critically, many frameworks still fail today not in their design, but in their deployment. They are built, put on a PDF, and then abandoned. So a framework that isn't used or a pathway that is not used is just documentation. So this is why here at Boulder, we shifted our focus from a rigid ladder to a dynamic capabilities focused career ecosystem. So our key lesson was that the traditional job ladder was rigid and often abandoned because it focused too heavily on fixed roles. Well, so then what's the solution? For us, the real solution lies on shifting to a career ecosystem built on a fundamentally different definition of growth. I did have a leader ask me point blank just not too long ago. Um, this leader came to me and said, John, what is our understanding of growth here? And so the question was there, and it led me to think broadly. And then thinking broadly, growth happens when we evolve, even if we stay in the same role. So our definition of growth had to be skills based and multi-directional. And so we started empowering, as a result of this reflection, our people internally to see growth not just as moving up, but also across and laterally, reflecting how careers truly evolve today. So we looked for a solution that reflected how people grow. And then we found the solution involved three critical steps. First, we identified critical capability clusters. So this is where we moved beyond generic job descriptions to determine the transferable competencies that actually drive success across different parts of the organization. And then second, we had to translate strategy into observable skills. For us, if a skill isn't observable, we can't coach it, we can't measure it. And then third, we use these definitions to create clarity that people can act on. So we defined clear, specific, and fair criteria for progression. Basically, our definition of growth now is the continuous progression of capabilities, knowledge, and value. For us to create an impactful career pathway at Boulder, we had to focus on what the role actually requires to be done well. And then we asked ourselves, so what critical organizational results do we hope to achieve with these functions? And then once we understood the different objectives within our business, we asked a follow-up question. What competencies will help us achieve those goals then? And that reflection helped us connect learning and development directly to business success by mapping high level goals to concrete, observable behaviors. That is how we translated strategy into skills. And then finally, we created clarity our people can act on. So progression criteria for us needs to be clear, specific, and fair. Everyone should be able to answer the question, to grow from level 2 to level 3, what exactly do I need to demonstrate? Or the question, to move from my current role to my secret passion, like Jennifer, what do I need to do to get there? And that this is the clarity that empowers employee ownership of their own career, of our own career growth. So I'm going to illustrate this in this next slide. Here is a practical example for our customer support team. We extracted the capabilities needed for each role within that department. And then we did it for all departments. So on the left side here, we have the customer specialist role. And on the right side, we have the team lead role. They are in the same division, in this example, in the same function department. So they use the same competencies. Now, by looking at the jobs side by side, we identified the competencies and distinguished the level of proficiency for each competency. And then we described them and we assigned them those descriptions to the different roles, making explicit that observable behaviors and the gradual evolution of the individual performing the task are made clear. And then we asked each leader of each function or business unit in our company, we asked them to validate our assessment. So in this illustration, the customer specialist moves to a team lead role, but inside our system, they can also move to a senior customer specialist and then remain in an individual contributor role with different expectations. These capabilities that we see here, they also show up in other areas of our business. So this basically means that when someone develops these capabilities, they grow within their division, but they also ensure readiness for other possible functions that also include or require these capability clusters here. These essential steps we took to define how people grow in Boulder moved us beyond rigid titles to defining clear, observable, multi-directional capabilities. And this conceptual shift was fundamental to the results that we have today. Now, then we had to answer the question about how to create the infrastructure to support this strategy. Well, we create this structure to support all of our 7 operating divisions, from customer success to people and places, all under one single unified pathway. The pathways are defined by 2 fundamental tracks: the individual contributor track and then the managerial track, and 4 clear organizational levels: professional, specialist, managerial, management, and executive. This structure allows for both vertical advancement and lateral shifts between specialties. Now, the build process was quite systematic for us, moving from the conceptual design that I just illustrated to you to operational delivery. We started by acknowledging the organizational structure we have and naming the job families. And then we mapped every role that we have in the business to either the individual contributor track or the managerial track. And then we developed competency frameworks for each level. Crucially, by doing this, we moved the process off the PDF or the drive folders or other static documents, and we had it uploaded into the learning management system that we partnered with, Juno. And this allowed us to link learning content directly to the required competencies, enabling employee-driven development planning, and for me, most importantly, training our managers to have effective career conversations because the system enables them to. So with the build up in there done, completed, we had to face the critical question of how do we ensure that these pathways, which look great on paper and even better in a live system, are actually used and not just displayed on the screen. So the key lesson for us was simple, but quite critical. We co-built the pathways with the division leaders, not just HR. We invited them to come in as SMEs and show their expertise. And their ownership was what transformed a document into a living system that is now published and visible company-wide. So the building was done, but then we wondered again, now how do we keep these paths relevant over time? Or in other words, how do we prevent the risk of launching this and then never touch on them again? So we literally spoke to our leaders and we made an internal commitment that on a quarterly basis, we would go to each division leader, current or new, and in a quick conversation, share them what was created and check in with them to see if they or their clients still measure their team's performance against those capabilities that we initially designed. And we evolved from there. With the speed with how things move today, we found that quarterly was a reasonable cadence to maintain. We had to go and this will sound funny, but we had to go as concrete or as practical or tactical as booking the discussion in people's calendar, in our leaders' calendar, a quarter ahead to ensure that they happen, and then that as a result we keep ourselves current. And that is because we believe our leaders are great resources to help us understand how the different roles are evolving, the different functions, and so on. And then if you wonder what it looks like, here is a visual enforcement of the critical shift that we have made. So moving from the purely vertical structure of the job ladder to the dynamic nature of the career ecosystem. This is the view after we have mapped nearly all the roles. So for the purpose of illustration, you are going to see here most of the roles that we have. So this is the view. It is in a living platform, and it's accessible to everyone with access to it, and also for me super easy to edit. And as soon as I made an edit here because of a change that happened as a result of leader checking conversations, people see it live in there after a minute without any friction. And that visibility is what allows us. So basically when we talk about multi-directional growth, what we mean is that we recognize that career growth is not just about moving up. So this visual allows us to illustrate and represent the shift and the strategy that we now implemented. What you see here is that each row is dedicated to one division. And within our divisions, we find the departments. We also see the number of positions and the number of people visible inside that department. No? So our career pathway actively supports lateral moves across departments, diagonal moves into related specializations, and even cross-functional moves that help people build broad experience. And I had the numbers some time ago, but I can tell you that a lot of our corporate roles today are filled with people moving from the operational departments and vice versa. These movements allow people to grow without being confined to one rigid path. And this flexibility is what makes these pathways truly usable for us. Now, I'd like to explore with you a little bit more of what made these pathways really stick. We knew from our experience that many frameworks look great on paper, but eventually they go unused and they are abandoned. It happened in the beginning of our business as well. Now, to prevent this from happening here, we came up with ways to ensure the pathways stick. And here is how we did that. First, we co-built with the leaders. They were involved from the beginning. They knew what we were up to. They discussed this with their peers, and we did this all to drive that shared ownership and buy-in from the get-go, ensuring that the pathway is owned by the division and not just HR. And so we basically drafted the progression for each department. We went to the leader and asked each leader to validate our understanding. We brought them into the conversation, involved them into the project, and made sure that their view was represented in here. Second, we made the pathways visible and personalized. So if you saw Cleo's presentation earlier, you now know how this was done. So we made them visible and personalized in our learning experience platform. But the idea is that people need to see themselves in the pathway. And so that was an understanding that we already had. So finding Juno to help us with that was a perfect match, because we know that people want to see them reflected in the progression. And so the question of what is my next step? What should I learn next? Must have a clear answer. And that answer we have provided by the system that enables this experience. Now, third, growth needs to be capability focused and defined by outcomes, not just job titles. So we integrated these pathways into our existing tools, moved from job ladders to skills-based multi-directional growth, and now our LMS our learning experience platform understands where our people are in their development and makes the recommendations for their next career steps based on their profile information. And finally, we as a team here operationalize it daily. So it's part of how we run L&D in our business now. We embed the pathways through learning journeys, manager conversations, and internal mobility programs. We did roadshows around the business, like literally going to each department and asking them, can we join your start of the week, to demonstrate how leaders can have career conversations with their teams, leveraging their pathway. And that brings us to the golden rule. A career path that lives on a PDF or a shared drive is not a career path. It must live where people already work, where they are. For us, learning management systems, learning experience platforms, they are essential here because they provide the career path visualization that people need to see. They provide role readiness scoring through assessments in there, and they connect all the learning content that is necessary for people to develop those competencies that we displayed earlier. So let me illustrate this for you here. To build on on this last point, that a career path on a PDF is not a career path, here is an illustration of how we ensure these pathways become living systems. The core of making this stick is really to move from documentation to daily application. So again, we integrated the pathways into existing tools that we have in the business, our learning platform in there. This here is what our people see. So here is one of our most complex business units, the tech and SaaS unit. People from this unit, they will have this view, which allows them to see very quickly what their next step could be. Now, what is great about this is how dynamic it is inside our system. So you see each card here that is displayed is a job within a job level. So it's going to be a job level. That's what it represents here. And then each each level or each job job level that we see here, they have these orange dots around them, indicating the different roles that belong to that same level. In this track, we have the map for the data services progression. So basically, when people click on their card, if they are a data services associate and they click on that card, what they are going to see is the competency assessment that we saw earlier, which will open, and that's how they see what is expected of them in this role. Now, when they click on the succeeding cards, they're going to see the competencies for the other roles showing what they need to develop to get to their next step in any direction that they wish. So the entire ecosystem here and how it's designed helps people understand which skills they should build next. And so here, this illustration is for the same business unit, still tech and SaaS, as indicated by the arrow, the orange arrow up there, but highlighting the roles that show up when we flip the cards. So if someone wants to move from data services that we saw earlier to a technical support role, they can simply open the card, see what the competencies are attached there, and work on their development towards that career move. We made the whole system integrated, and by doing that, we basically drove two-way ownership here. One is the employee ownership, which allows people to explore, aspire, and self-nominate for roles available in the business, and manager support, where managers provide the accountability and the coaching conversations necessary for growth. So this technology integration ensures that the path lives where people already work and where the conversations happen. Or in other words, it enables for the conversations to happen, creates the the advantage that managers need in order to drive those types of conversations with their direct reports. One key message that we shared in our business when this was deployed was that each individual owns their career growth. So the question about who owns career career development growth in the business. Who is the primary responsible here? Our answer is this is the individual. The individual is the owner of their own development. And so that message shared across the company um, reflected the idea that while while each individual owns their career growth, we as a company enable it. And they struct so in other words here is this structure is always going to be there. We're always going to have that sort of structure here showing like different paths. Now, the people movement is what emphasizes the flexibility of a through career ecosystem. We understood that a well-designed pathway is useless if it is not integrated into daily work. So after building the pathways our people would actually use, we worked on how to embed career pathways into everyday work. So for us, the vital factor for success was how do we operationalize the system and integrate into the daily rhythm of work here. To operationalize pathways, we then focused on three core areas. First, we used role-based learning journeys. So those are not generic courses. So they are curated paths directly mapped to the competencies required for advancement. Um, People access and they have access to learning resources on demand, and we report the progress and make the progress visible to leadership in order for us to demonstrate tangible development. So, one example, just 2 weeks ago, when someone received a shout out from one of our clients in our global channel, have an internal global channel. Every time that somebody receives a shout out from the client, a leader will go to that channel and post it to the entire company to see. So when somebody received a shout out just like 2 weeks ago for the excellent customer service provided, I immediately added to the thread that that particular individual was one of our top learners, having completed more than 25 micro courses just this year. And the last one, precisely on proactive customer service. So that allowed me to show evidence to the business of the correlation between learning and performance in the workplace. And that wasn't the first time that we did it, but this happened just recently because we make sure as a team, the team that I have, we make sure that we dedicate time in our work routine looking for these connections. Um, Second, we focused on manager-led development. So we created a channel where we published materials to guide managers in activating these paths. Our message is very clear. Our message is that every conversation with their team member is a performance conversation. Growth conversations are integrated into our regular one-on-ones, and that is my experience, folks. My leader, who is our vice president, included in our weekly 101, in our weekly 101s, growth as part of our permanent agenda. So it starts here. And from here, we could only disseminate this practice. So I had our director of marketing the other day bring me to a call with his direct report to confirm the steps that they were taking around their career conversation and development plans. And then some other comical events happening. Our senior director for customer success invited me to his start of week meeting with his leaders to demonstrate the pathway to his senior managers so they could go and talk to their team leaders. And then the week after, the senior director for the tech and SaaS unit came to me and said, "Hey, I heard you visited the other team there, so I can't stay behind. You need to come do a roadshow to my team as well." And then organically this started like spreading, and now team managers come and look for us to show them how they can support the development of their team members, because it is what their team members need. And suddenly, this is now also part of our routine. We are visiting the departments and doing like office hours and road shows, educating them on using these pathways. A month after we started campaigning internally, we saw an increase of 72% in learning engagement. Folks, when we build something this robust and meaningful, that people see the results, our problems become conversations that start with, this is how I can help you. And that is the type of problem that I face on my day to day now. It's basically going to people telling them how we can help them um, drive career growth within their departments. The type of problems that we created when we have meaningful systems supporting us is just inspiring and fulfilling. But we didn't stop there. With all this power in our hands, I'm now positioning my team here as one of the drivers of internal mobility. Yes, we do have internal hiring process for our recruitment teams to conduct internal headhunting to fill key positions. And when we fill these key positions internally, we link them back to their ongoing development. And another initiative that we have here is that every time that people complete a learning milestone, we celebrate that milestone publicly with a shout out that helps us boost morale, helps inspire other, um, to show that to tell them that learning is cool, but mainly because I want to show the recruiters what our people are learning. So if they have a vacancy tied to that skill, they now know where to headhunt. um, but also to show leaders what their team members are developing, what they are learning, what they are focused on, and enable leaders to have engaging career conversations with their team members where they see the announcement, the posting there that their team member completed course X or went through this learning experience that allowed them to develop a certain skill. So now the leader can go to their team member and talk to them about what they were learning, their main takeaways, and how they can apply that knowledge to their work. So it becomes enablement for the manager to drive engagement as well. That is because a healthy pathway really encourages reflection of real world career career evolution. And so the way that we empowered our leaders to conduct meaningful growth conversations here was through the competencies that we defined for their units. We basically showed how leaders can engage with their teams in building capability objectively. And I can tell you, it's been really powerful to witness managers and individuals discuss where their team members are in their journey. And so the dialogue is structured. We basically walk them through it. It's focused on competencies. They go over the competencies defined for each role and they answer whether they currently meet expectations or have room for growth. And when the self-assessment is ready, our platform assesses where the person is in their career journey today and recommends developmental experiences for them to grow. So managers have that visibility to support while the team member is empowered to work on their growth journey. Powerful, isn't it? Now, once everything was in place, the campaigns happened and people got excited and started using it, then we had to answer the next question. How do we know that these pathways are really all working? So this was really about moving beyond anecdotal evidence to demonstrate clear impact from engagement to business outcomes. We are now measuring success across three key categories. First, we track skill progression. So this category basically focuses on leading indicators of development, such as percentage of employees who have active development plans, knowledge acquired through all learning modes, based on what I just shared of how I make it public to the business, and how the 9-box evaluation changes over time, indicating readiness. So these metrics show that our people are actively developing the capabilities needed. And then second, we look at internal mobility and retention. So a healthy pathway system drives movement and loyalty. So we track the internal versus the external hire rate, and then the promotion rate and the retention rate specifically for people who are on active development plans. And then with this data available, we made it a point that every year we report retention and promotion rates of people who engaged in a development path versus those who did not. And the difference has been huge. The promotion rate for people under development plans is 16% higher in our business compared to those without it. And the retention rate is more than 100% higher than compared to people that are not in any development path or have not engaged in any learning experience. So with our pathways working, we have minimal challenges growing and retaining our talent internally, or we should have minimal challenges in there. Third, we link these pathways directly to business performance or business outcomes. So this is the ultimate proof point. We analyze engagement scores correlated to career clarity. We look at the general performance improvement as a result of learning, and we track the appraisal score increases where people on development paths should be meeting or exceeding expectations. And so this is how we connect our career pathways to the bottom line. And one other key metric that we are looking at now is our reprofiling rate, which for us is a strong signal of a dynamic skill-based internal career movement. All these metrics just to show that career pathways are not just an HR project. They are a strategic business value because they impact engagement, performance, development, and retention directly. So with that, I'd like to wrap up with the key takeaways from today's topic. I want to leave you with 5 key takeaways that summarize our experience here and suggest a roadmap for other organizations. First, remember to shift from rigid ladders to skills-based, multi-directional career ecosystems. Move beyond linear vertical thinking to a fluid capabilities-focused system. Second, be deliberate and define growth using capability clusters and skills and not just roles. Growth must be clear, must be observable, and connected to transferable skills. Third, the pathways must be in a living system. Operationalize them daily and make sure that they are where people work, not on a PDF, not on a drive folder, not on a static document. If it is not integrated into your daily tools, it will fail. Fourth, ensure that these pathways are fully activated by learning and coaching. So embed growth through learning journeys, manager-led conversations, because that's what's going to foster ownership from both the team member and their managers. And then finally, you need to prove value. Measure the success via skill readiness, mobility, and business outcomes. Use the data to track skill progression, retention, and ultimately like business performance. With this, thank you for listening, everyone. With these key takeaways in mind, we can move to our Q&A session.
Yes, we can. Julia, I gave you permission to talk. You're invited to share with us your question.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I love this session. Thanks so much for sharing. As we talk about skills in our organization, I'm just curious, a lot of times we hear the feedback that growth has to mean the next role or the promotion. I'm curious if there's a way that you approach it about focusing on those skills and growth from a skills perspective, even if it doesn't necessarily mean the next role right away.
Yes, the conversation really happened within the business in a very conscious manner. So it started amongst us leaders here, defining what growth really means. And then from that definition, we came to the conclusion that growth is more than moving up to your next step. Growth happens every time that we improve an ability, develop a competency, work on our strengths, and evolve. So every sign of evolution is for us a manifestation of growth. So it doesn't happen only when you get promoted. This was the definition that as a business we agreed to. And from there, we committed to disseminating this definition within our team members. And we had to go through movements and a series of conversations until it became something that our people understood and took advantage of.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else who
Well,
wants to answer or share from their experience, you can just open the mic and share. And if anyone wants to ask another question, we can invite maybe Harry or Kimberly that mentioned they'll be open to sharing. You don't have to. Quiet room. Okay. So unless anyone wants to, Risa, go ahead, Risa. You can talk. You can open the
Thank
mic.
you. I just had a quick question. Thank you so much again for kind of walking us through the journey at Boulder. I just wanted to hear if there were any specific examples of the business outcomes that you either measured or identified. I think the storytelling within that is very compelling, but specifically for business leaders. So I'd just like to hear what if anything, you all found as you guys roll this out.
yeah, there is one that is very special to me. Like, and it is the outcome that we now cling onto, because it's basically, and here I don't know how appropriate it is to say this, but it's basically the outcome that allowed me to guarantee budget annually for L&D the way that in the way that we operate today. So we divided our population into two groups. This happened like I think about 2 years ago, and then since then we started doing this exercise, and they do it every year. We divide our population into two groups. One group includes everybody that has gone through any type of learning experience that we have available for them in our business. So if they went through some aspiring leadership program, or if they took a course inside our learning platform, or if they created their development plan and went through that development plan with their manager, any learning experience. So they are going to be part of this group A. And then group B is going to include everybody that has never engaged in any learning experience, never showed any sort of, never displayed any type of disposition to manifest growth in that sort of manner. And so what we did was we compared, with these two groups divided, we compared the retention rate of group A and the retention rate of group B. And then when I saw the results, my impulse was, I have to share this with our senior leaders, because the retention rate for group A, people that engaged in a sort of development path, was 123% higher than the retention rate of the group that was never enrolled or never went through any sort of developmental path. And so I became curious and thought, what about promotion rate? And I did the same exercise. I divided these two groups, and then I looked at promotion rate of people enrolled in a development track and promotion rate of people that are not enrolled in anything, that are never engaged, never took any, was never curious to go through any sort of learning experience. And the promotion rate result was also made us like look at it became evident that there is a really strong correlation between learning the workplace and growth in any way, growth by for the business and for the individual. The promotion rate of group A was 16% higher than the promotion rate of the group of people that there was not in a developmental track. So showing that a career pathway really helps sustain the business in terms of retaining internal talent and helping us build leadership capability internally was convincing enough for us to maintain our investment in this sort of program. So those are the two key takeaways, business outcomes that I can share with you, because they are still very much part of the conversation we have in the business today.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're very welcome.
Thank you also for asking and for participating. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I want to thank everyone who joined us today, and specifically you, John. This was incredibly insightful and actually really cool to see. I'll share the recording, the presentation, the summary of everything, so you can get back to everything we learned. And of course, more to come with more sessions. So I'll send that as well. And thank you so much. Thank you, John.
Thank you,
You
Cleo.
did
Thanks,
good.
everybody.
Bye.